All right, good evening, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed members of the Planning Board and valued community representatives, I welcome you all to this evening's assembly of the Saco Planning Board. As chairman, it is my privilege to convene this gathering dedicated to the thoughtful planning and development of our community. Today, we come together with a shared commitment to shaping the future of our city in a manner that reflects our values, respects our heritage, and fulfills the needs of our residents both now and in the future. Our agenda tonight contains important matters, each requiring our careful consideration, expertise, and collaboration. As we engage in our deliberations, let us remember the profound impact these decisions will have on the lives of all, keeping in mind we're residents like you. It is our duty to maintain transparency, fairness, and inclusivity in our proceedings, ensuring that the voices of all are heard and respected. Together, we must embrace the responsibility entrusted to us by our community, working diligently and thoughtfully to chart a course that fosters growth, prosperity, and harmony. And with that, I would like to call this meeting of the Tuesday, July. Look forward to the productive discussions and meaningful outcomes that lie ahead. Thank you. With us this evening, myself, the chairman, Matt Provenzel, and to my left, we have our vice chair, Joyce Leary Clark, and planning board members Jeff Brochu, Catherine Palini, and to my right, Jim Moyer and Chris Gagnon. With us this evening as well, our staff members, we have our city planner, Charles Tillman, and Lisa Harmon, our planning compliance manager, along with our Ward 7 City Council liaison, Nate Johnson. With that, we will move to our first item of business, which is the review of our previous meeting minutes. Do board members have any questions, comments, or edits to that draft document?
Chair, I will just note that we did add the blurb that we talked about at the last meeting, that these minutes provided are an overview of the meeting. For additional information, the video of the full meeting can be watched on the planning board website on the city. So again, following what council's doing to some extent, that the minutes are reflecting kind of the official motions and actions of the planning board with kind of briefer summaries, because getting things verbatim is really, really difficult and time consuming for us. But we also have the recording, so let's refer folks to that.
Great, thank you.
With that, Mr. Chair, I would move that we adopt the draft meeting minutes from the July 7th, 2026 as presented this evening.
Second.
Great, thank you for the motion, Jeff, and the second, Jim. Any additional discussion? Jim.
Mr. Chair, I just want to alert everyone, I have reviewed all the materials for July 7th, and I watched the entire meeting, so I feel comfortable voting on the minutes.
Great, thank you, Jim. All right, those in favor? Chris?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
I'll vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0. Our next item is our review of our after-the-fact packet, which I don't see this evening, so no after-the-fact packet. With that, item 6 on our agenda, we have our consent calendar item. This is 11 Eastview Parkway, Unit 103, Map 64, Lot 6-2-53. This is an application of completeness for a conditional use review for an automotive repair service within the Portland Road zoning district, and the applicant is GE Motorsport. Board members have a motion on this item?
Mr. Chair, I'll move to approve the the consent items, please.
I would second that.
Thank you for the motion, Jim, and the second, Jeff. Any additional discussion on that motion? All right, those in favor. Chris?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
I'll vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0. Our next item on our agenda this evening is our Planning Board Public Hearing Guidelines. This is a document developed by the board and city staff outlining the procedure in place for our public hearings held. This explains the purpose of the public hearings and the outline procedure for reviewing an application, public comment presentation, and meeting duration. If anyone has any questions on this document, please let us know. There are copies at the rear of the auditorium along with digital copies available on the city's website. Continuing along, our next item on our agenda is item 8, and this is our public comment period. Our public comment period is an opportunity to hear from members of the public. We limit this agenda item to a total of 15 minutes for items or topics not under planning board review. The planning board appreciates public comment and recognizes the public comment about matters before it can help the board understand neighborhood concerns, review an application, or help understand additional items. Those wishing to make statements about an application currently under planning board's review are asked to provide those statements during the applicable public hearing period. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. However, if there are multiple members of the public looking to speak, we may reduce that time per person to accommodate all speakers. So if anyone is with us this evening that would like to address any general planning items, please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record, and we will collect comments and address them accordingly. All right, seeing no participation this evening, we will continue along. Our next item, number 9, is our planning applications under review and public hearings this evening. Item 9A is our first item, and this is 196 Jenkins Road, map lot 91-01 and 90-16. And this is a continued public hearing and application review for final subdivision of 14 residential lots within the West Residential Zoning District. Charles, anything to add on this item before we begin?
Not at this time.
Thank you. Board members, any conflicts or disclosures? All right, and with that, we'll turn it over to the applicant.
Good evening, James Lowry with BH2M, here on behalf of Mazoyan Development and Mike Mazoyan. As you noted, here for final review of the 14-lot subdivision on Jenkins Road. We were last in front of you all on June 2nd. During that meeting, you deemed the final application complete, scheduled the public hearing for tonight. Since then, we have had a couple of iterations of response letters back and forth with staff, city engineer comments, attorneys' comments, and landscape architecture. I think the most recent updates were from the Department of Public Works, in which we modified the final subdivision plan to differentiate a portion of a drainage easement to be conveyed to the city, and a portion to be retained by the homeowners association. Added a note on the plan with regard to the paving at the entrance of Seasons Landing Drive to where it comes out and intersects Jenkins Road. Provided some responses to Regina Leonard's comments on landscape architecture. Part of the discussion from the last meeting we had with you all, we have added a row of evergreen plantings along the sort of the easterly property line of Lot 10, where it comes up and abuts the existing residential use right as you come into the subdivision. So it'd be the home on the left as you enter into the subdivision. There's a lot that is somewhat perpendicular to that piece that doesn't have a lot of existing buffering there. We've added some evergreen plantings. And, as I said, just to revise the subdivision plan to provide some more clarity in response to comments from the city engineer and the attorney. I think one final item was emailed to Charles earlier this morning, which was a updated road maintenance agreement that, per attorney comment, referenced the sidewalks to be included within the maintenance along with Seasons Landing Drive. So a little bit of a cleanup item there. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. One other item, Jim, I remembered you mentioned the financial capacity letter, which we provided an updated version of that. So with that, happy to answer any questions or allow for public comment.
Great, thank you, sir. Board members, any questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chair, if it's appropriate, if we have no questions at this time for the applicant, I'll move to open the public hearing.
I would second that.
Thank you for, excuse me, thank you for the motion, Jim, and the second, Jeff. Any additional discussion on the motion to open a public hearing? All right, those in favor, Chris?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes?
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
I'll vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0 to open a public hearing. If anyone is with us this evening that would like to speak on this item, please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record, and we will collect comments and address them accordingly.
Mr. Chair, seeing no member of the public wishing to speak at this time, I'll move to close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
Thank you for the motion, Jim, and the second, Chris. Any additional discussion? All right, those in favor, Chris?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes?
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
I'll vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0 to close a public hearing. All right, back to the board. Any additional thoughts, comments, questions, concerns? Looks like the applicants picked up the comments from our last discussion.
Mr. Chair, are we still, is the applicant still in need of that waiver of section 188, 711A6?
I believe the waiver was granted as part of the preliminary approval. I'm looking to see if I have that in these findings, or in the draft findings I prepared. But I believe you guys waived that as part of preliminary and site plan.
Charles, I believe that if you're noting the waiver that was in your memo was a holdover from an erroneous waiver from where you may have used a template for the memo that
Right,
was
I think-
applicable to a different project.
That's correct, yeah. I think that was what we had discussed. Yeah, I'm going through the original, and I think we had taken that out.
I look back at the last meeting we attended, and I remember that discussion. It looked to be the same waiver.
Did I include that in this memo? Yeah, that's another typo on my end. Sorry, apologies for that.
Okay, so we can strike that waiver.
Yeah, that's not included in the findings correctly.
Jeff?
I guess I'll go. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much. You've addressed all of our questions very timely and efficiently and professionally. I think that, what they've come here is a very nice, it'll be a suitable package. There are some things that I really wish we could strive to get, like the alignment of the road. We didn't want to impact that wetland at the beginning with the road on the opposite side of the road. I was a little disappointed we weren't able to get the frontage, the sidewalk, because it's, as the board felt, it's a sidewalk to nowhere, but it's part of our standard, and we have it in there. I really, just in the sense of consistency, it would be great to have had this mixing of private and, private ways and public ways is getting convoluted, and I get it. They're trying to work the most value out of the land that's available to them. I really thought of all the developers, and they talked, they had addressed it. I thought this would be one that would have the ability to pull it together. And I really think we need to really focus on getting that to happen on subdivisions. I like how much attention to detail their homeowners association documents have to really present a quality product for the city of Saco and look forward to it. I just, in the sense of consistency, because it's another dead end and we didn't get the frontage, I don't know if I can vote in favor of it, because I feel like we need to be mindful to push. And I think this type of team that's presenting before us tonight is the team that will have the depth and caliber in future projects to start to sway that influence in Saco to get that connectivity. But in the sense of mine vote, I think that it's important that we really strive to hit all of those criteria in our ordinance. So the negative vote would be because of not being able to meet all of those criteria. And part of that is because I was outnumbered on the board as far as things like the sidewalk on the frontage. And I get it, wetland impact's important, but the overall long-term goal for all of our residents and our zoning ordinance is important as well. So, but all in all, I think it's, it's a quality product. I wish we would have been able to tie it all together and have that connectivity in a through street. So, thank you.
Sorry. And I do know that there were attempts to try and interconnect back to Jenkins Road that weren't successful.
Great, thank you, Jeff. Any other thoughts or questions from board members?
No, I
Joyce?
guess, I'd echo Jeff somewhat in terms of the fact that the applicant's been very responsive to comments and this is a fairly small private way at the end. I think just the configuration of the lot, there's no way to make a loop road with the property that's here, and I remember the applicant mentioning the fact that he had approached abutters about buying property to connect back to Jenkins Road, and that was a non-starter. So I think this is the property that he owns, and he's making the best use of it possible and protecting a lot of wetlands at the same time, lessening the impact to the neighbors. So.
Great, thank you, Joyce. Any other thoughts from board members?
I guess with that, Mr. Chair, I would move that we adopt the draft findings of facts for 196 Jenkins Road as drafted this evening.
I'll second.
Thank you for the motion, Jeff, and the second, Joyce. Any additional discussion on the motion to adopt the findings of fact as presented? All right, those in favor, Chris?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
I'll vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0. Just want to make sure everyone's paying attention.
Good plan.
Mr. Chair, I'll move that we adopt the conditions of approval for 196 Jenkins Road.
I'll second that.
Thank you for the motion, Jim, and the second, Chris. Any additional discussion on the motion to adopt the conditions of approval as presented? All right, those in favor, Chris?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
No.
Catherine?
Yes.
A vote yes. Motion passes 5-1.
Mr. Chair, I'll move that we grant final subdivision approval to the property 196 Jenkins Road, map lot 90-16 and 91-1.
Thank you for the motion, Jim.
Second.
Second by Joyce, thank you. Any additional discussion? All right, those in favor, Chris?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
No.
Catherine?
Yes.
A vote yes, motion passes 5-1. All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you all, we appreciate it. And Charles, I'll be in touch. Thank you.
All right, our next item on the agenda this evening is item 9B. This is 955 Portland Road, map 62, lot 21. And this is a public hearing and application review for site plan and SLOTA to construct 2 commercial warehouses in the Portland Road zoning district. Charles, anything to add on this item before we begin?
Nothing at this time.
All right, great, thank you. Board members, any conflicts or disclosures on this item before we begin? All right, and with that, we will turn it over to the applicant.
Let me know if there's anything I need to do to get my show up. Do I just hit this? I want to hit it, but I don't actually hit that.
No, you don't have to say it.
Just finding it.
Sorry, I'm just going to, if you don't mind me driving for a
No,
second.
don't. Thanks, Charles.
And if you just go into the full, if you want to put that in the full screen. Okay, and then what we'll do is do this, and you're in.
Thank you, Charles. Good evening. I'm Amy Bell Siegel from Sebago Technics, here tonight on behalf of Rochelle LLC, who's the owner, and Northland Enterprises and Management Corp., which will be the developer. Brad Fries is here tonight on behalf of Northland to answer any specific questions about the application beyond my presentation. So to give an introduction, we are here tonight to amend an existing site plan, to discuss it. And to give some context to that, we have an aerial image here to show you kind of what's going on here now. So we have Portland Road down here at the base, a signalized intersection. This is the existing package building that was built on this parcel and completed in 2024. Adjacent on the other side is the Hancock Lumber Facility and some other context area businesses are the Seacoast Flooring here, Aroma Joe's, and Evolution Athletics over here. This is Cascade Road and a portion of Waterfall Drive that's been completed. So as you can see here, Pack Edge has an existing warehouse facility. They have employee parking here and loading docks and storage area in the back. This dashed area here of that sort of 28 total acres of the parcel, this portion back here that we're looking to amend the site plan to include is about 9.5 acres. So that's where the proposed one-stop event rental warehouse building will be located. So all of the utilities and the access road will all be extended from this existing road that's here now. Just a quick glimpse here of what it looks like from Portland Road. You have Pack Edge facility on the left and Hancock Lumber on the right. This will be the main access drive into the proposed warehouse building. It's an overall site plan showing the signalized intersection sort of down here. That comes up, existing access drive that'll be extended, existing Pack Edge facility. The deeper orange color is the phase 1 building for the new proposed building, which will be 37,858 square feet. And then the sort of beigeur area is the phase 2 building, which will be about 37,000 square feet. You'll see, I'll get to the next sort of enlargement here. And on the sort of north side of the building, there'll be 34 parking spaces for employees and visitors. And that area of parking will be extended to the rear for another 36 spaces for phase 2. The dark gray area shows all the pavement in phase 1 in the rear area. There'll be 8 loading docks on that southern facade, parking for box trucks, specialty trucks, and other storage areas in that area. The light gray shows the expansion into the phase 2 area. The blue area here is the stormwater management BMP that's being designed. That is designed to handle the full build-out. That will be constructed as part of phase 1, but is designed to handle all of phase 2 build-out. One thing I wanted to note is another sort of a small access drive on this facade, and I'll show you the elevations in a minute. That is a pickup space for pickup and drop-off space for customers. So it'll be people with cars and pickup trucks, so no large box trucks or anything like that. But we felt that the distance was long enough to warrant a backup space just for folks so they can sort of turn and get out and avoid any conflicts with large trucks that may be going to the rear of the lot. This is an overview of utilities, just to quickly review how we're extending utilities into the site. So the water line the water power sort of have been stubbed out from the existing Pack Edge facility. So you'll see this is a little inset here on the bottom, but that's the 4-inch domestic and the 8-inch fire line that'll be extended from those existing stubbed out utility there, water line, that'll feed into the building. The mechanicals are kind of tucked in this back corner here. The storm drain system, we have to do one thing first before we install this, and that is to reroute the existing storm drainage that was designed for Pack Edge that led to a level spreader kind of in the middle of the site. That was kind of where the building is. So we're going to reroute that. It'll go underneath the access road and go out to a new level spreader and be discharged from there. The parking lots, these pink lines represent sort of all of the water that will be collected within the catch basins and the storm drain structures and collected and from all the parking lots and the roof areas. All of that water will go into that wet pond, as I mentioned. That's sized to handle the whole site, but the magenta lines, as you can see here, are showing what will be built in phase 1. There'll be foundation drains around the building that'll also be that'll outlet into the level spreader down here. The sewer line will be a gravity line, 6-inch sanitary line, that'll exit the building on the southern side here, go through under the access road, cross over the existing culvert that provides continuity for the stream section here, and then it'll continue on and connect into the existing sewer line in Waterfall Drive. I'm going to go back a second just so you can see that. So right now there's kind of an existing sort of access-y road that crosses over the stream and kind of ends where Waterfall Drive ends, because it's that unfinished portion, and there's a culvert there. So that portion of the stream that's shown in the blue line is culverted through there. So our sewer line's going to go over that. We'll have to add some additional fill over that line, obviously, and, but all of that fill will be contained within that existing fill section that's there now. It'll be built up, but it'll be within, it won't get wider, won't impact the wetlands or the stream in that area. And then for power, we're going to be dropping power from an existing pole here, and that'll go to the transformer, and kind of move around the building, and then we'll have 3 propane tanks, above-ground propane tanks located here, and that'll feed into the building there, in that corner. These are the elevations developed by Patco. So this top one here will be the elevation that you'll be looking at from Route 1, or from Portland Road as you're looking straight back. So it'll be very consistent in architectural materials. It'll be that gray siding with that blue stripe, very similar to Pack Edge. But this building will have a little bit of a accent here on the corner where they're going to have their showroom on the lower level and then office space above. And, you know, that's where the different products will be on display and where the visitor entrance will be. This, the bottom elevation shows what will be visible from its extended access road. So it'll have that showroom kind of in that front corner. And then this is that pickup drop-off for customers. And then, you know, employee access doors. This elevation, the east elevation, is that rear point showing that 8 loading docks and egress, and then the north elevation is simply has some smaller windows and an emergency egress for employees. This was in your packet, so it just has some more details if you have questions. This will be the signage that'll be located out towards Portland Road, which will have both Pack Edge and the one-stop event rental on the panel. This is kind of a blurry image, but just have a couple of some existing conditions images so you can see that. I know we're going to have a site walk tomorrow, so you can see this in person, but this is the frontage along Pack Edge, just showing that existing sidewalk that's there. This is the, you know, access looking towards Hancock Lumber. This is towards Pack Edge. This is looking back towards the intersection. This is the access road that will be extended. Our project will be in that wooded area to the rear of the image. And this is just some stream photos because I thought it would be helpful because I'm not sure how easy it'll be to get in there tomorrow. This is that existing culvert and that exact access road that's over it right now that we'll be building up with a sewer line. So that is just sort of the presentation there, and I'm just going to go through a couple more points just to make sure we're touching on that. Okay, so in the application, we had noted that we were going to have 2 fuel tanks located in the rear of the lot. They were going to be located here. At this time, we're taking that off the plans and out of the application. At the point in the future where the tenant wants to have those, we'll move forward with the proper permitting, both in the town and fire marshal's office, et cetera, DEP. But I just wanted to note that we're removing those for now. The dumpster is located here. That'll be in an enclosure that has been sized appropriately for this current tenant. We've already talked about the propane tanks and the transformer there. So just want to make sure that those were highlighted. Lighting, we're going to have 10 pole-mounted fixtures. They'll be 20 feet high and 12 wall packs around the building. Those will all be no greater than 20 feet in height. At full build-out, we'll have 18 wall-mounted units and 14 poles. Oops, go back. Waste, we talked about. Oh, yeah, so we've been working with, Water Resource Recovery Department on getting our capacity letter, which we have. So we're working through, sort of confirming. They have capacity, so what we're working on now is just making sure that, they would have requested a fire hydrant be placed in there, so we'll be placing one probably in this area over here. That has to do with fire safety, but also with water capacity. So we'll be pressure testing that hydrant and doing all those things that we need to do as we work through the building permit. just kind of wanted to note that, it was one of the comments from staff. And then landscaping, we have, the foundation plantings, it's a little bit kind of nicer and more colorful, kind of out towards that showroom, and then kind of more standard hardy plant material around the foundation, and then within the parking lot to break up the bays of parking as we move along, and then some additional landscaping with some native species along the warehouse front here. We're preserving all the vegetation within the 75-foot setback of the stream. We'll have some areas that we're permitting with DEP for an outfall pipe from the wet pond in this general area. But to the extent possible, we really sort of push the design to minimize impacts to that stream and the wetlands associated with that. There will be 2 wetlands that'll be impacted within the project site. A portion of this wetland here, which is kind of in the 3,400 square feet range, that may connect to other wetlands sort of north of here or east of there. And then a smaller isolated wetland, and this is, if you read through staff comments, one of the comments from Normando Associates was sort of questioning whether or not there was additional wetlands out here. We have since gone out there and determined that there was another smaller area of wetlands, which we're showing on the site plan there. This was an area where our natural resource wetland scientists went out and looked at it in sort of late spring. It was kind of a low water time, so, and they were sort of questioning the wetland there because it appeared to be more of the runoff from the level spreader that was installed as part of Pack Edge's development. But, just to properly vet that concern, we went back out and looked at it and are showing that area. It sort of marginally meets the criteria, but, we wanted to be as thorough as possible. So that's currently now on our site plan, and we'll resubmit that as part of our response to your comments as well. Yeah, so I think stormwater, I think we've gone over that. I can go into any details on that if we need to. We are, with our BMP, we're providing treatment for 100% of impervious areas and 94.7% of the total developed area. Runoff discharging into the site will be at or below the pre-development conditions for the 2, 10, 25, and 50-year storms. As I mentioned, the outfalls from that wet pond will go towards the stream, and we're permitting that outfall. So that's an overview. So I can go into answer questions or any more details as needed.
Great, thank you. Board members, any questions for the applicant? Jim?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The one question I had to do with the parking, and it looks like you're looking for a waiver
Correct.
on the number of spaces. Can you talk about that, please, and why you've concluded that the number of spaces you have on the plan would be sufficient for this development?
Sure. Yes. So with our total of about 75,000 square feet for a full build-out, with per ordinance, with 1 space per 500 square feet, we would need approximately 75 parking spaces for each of the phases, for a total of 150 parking spaces. With the reality of the tenant that's going in here, and knowing that they only need about 24 parking spaces at any time for that's in their current facilities in Ellsworth. We based it on sort of their functioning needs. So I think they're at any one time they have 24 cars parked on site. They have somewhere between 30 and 32 employees, something like that. So it just kind of depends on who's on site, but that's their average. So we designed that first phase to have 34 parking spaces, which will be more than enough to accommodate their employees as well as the visitors and accessible parking spaces. So we didn't want to over-park it, and kind of knowing, even with that expansion, the potential expansion in the second phase, they may not need as much of this additional parking as we're showing, but we wanted to be reasonable and show that there is capacity for 70 parking spaces. So it's a little less than half of what the ordinance requires, but it is appropriate for this use. I'll note, too, that, with the additional pavement that's on the backside, there is room for additional parking if the tenant was to change, or, if there's a greater demand, there would be parking on the rear side too, or space for parking. So yes, we are asking for a waiver from that standard.
So in the first phase, I think you said you had 34 spaces?
34, yep,
And an additional 36 for the second phase?
correct.
Just out of curiosity, why have more parking for the second phase if you don't think you're going to need it?
From a design perspective, it's kind of the same amount of area, it's just that we have the accessible spaces there, so you kind of lose room when you have your accessible aisles. So it's essentially the same amount of space, and we're breaking it up for the landscape standards, breaking it up into these quads there of the 18 plus or minus spaces. So it's just kind of a design that.
And in other facilities that this tenant or owner has had, and you mentioned, I think, they don't need more than 24 spaces, even though they have more employees than that. Obviously, some people ride share or drive together to work. Is the facility that they have now, where they only need 24 spaces, is it this size? I'm just wondering might they have more employees here than they had at other facilities, or do you think it's comparable?
Good evening. Brad Freeze, one of the partners with the development firm. Yeah, so this user is actually in South Portland right now. They're actually going to be relocating to Saco. It's a smaller facility where they're in right now in South Portland, but a majority of this new building is going to be warehouse space. They are severely lacking in storage space. So I can't remember the square footage of office. It's like 5,000 or 6,000 square foot here, and the remainder of the square footage of this building is going to be primarily storage, which they don't have currently. So it doesn't really translate into more employees. It's really going to be the same number of employees. They just need they need more space. So.
Great, thank you.
Right, yeah, the South Portland facility is like several structures and just very disorganized and very inefficient. And they do have the other facility in Ellsworth, which is a little bit more modern, I guess I would say. So we were kind of basing it on what their more, a more ideal facility is up there, but knowing it, that the actual employees will be moving from the South Portland office to here.
Thank you, Jim. Any other thoughts or questions from board members? Joyce?
I guess my initial thought looking at this is there's no buffering on I guess it's the northerly side there along the Stevenson property. And I always like to see, something between uses, especially because you're coming fairly close to the property line. So personally, I'd like to see some green, whether it's leaving existing vegetation or planting something there just to provide some buffer between this property and the property abutting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we were very conscious of the grading on this backside here for that phase 2 to be able to preserve vegetation along here. And we can look at, pulling that back in based on the trees that are there. So we need to do a little bit more surveying of those trees, but we can.
Yeah,
sort of
I
pull
realize
that
what
and
you're showing is
preserve
what
that.
you'd be planting as opposed to what's already there.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Can I comment on that? Yeah.
Sure, sure.
So yeah, we understand that. We ended up having to put some new plantings in on the northern side of the Pack Edge building. As you guys probably know, that's just a line of trees right now. So it just seemed like a little bit of a waste of money and effort to maintain those. We have to maintain those now, and it's just it feels like there could be new plantings could be kind of situated elsewhere in a more appropriate spot. But if you folks really, if we need to accommodate that, we can.
Just one question that popped in my head off of Joyce, if you don't mind, Chair.
Sure.
Would the limit of clearing for phase one construction be more limited than going all the way? So if, just trying to look at because if it's all wooded over there currently, some of that buffering will be preserved until phase two is developed, correct? Or is the plan to cut the whole space for phase one and phase two?
No, the extent of the clearing is going to include everything shown here for phase two. So where the phase two building footprint is going to eventually go, that is going to be cleared and graded, you know, in a simplistic form, which I think we're showing here as far as loam and seed, but we are going to clear it out. So in other words, where the phase two building footprint is going to be, that is not going to be maintained as you know, the vegetation and the trees, you know, that's currently there. Okay.
The plan is to do the clearing, put in the subgrade, and then loam and seed it. So that it's the area that's the expanded employee lot, the building, and that back portion there will be all loam and seeded.
It's more efficient to do all your site work at once, I'm sure.
Yeah, especially because the building and everything is back on the back side of the site, so, yeah.
Thank you, Joyce. Any other thoughts? Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I was kind of have my list here, starting with the DPW's review. Has there been a determination if you're going to need a centralized mailbox because of the addressing, and then where that may go on this layout?
Yeah, I have already started reaching out to the post office to kind of understand how that would work. But yes, we are going to plan to do that. Currently, Package just has their own standalone mailbox. I believe it's right in front of the main entrance. But obviously, that won't work for any other user on the site. So we are going to talk through that. I don't know where it's going to go, but it's probably going to go somewhere towards the front of the site.
But we'd obviously see it on the revisions as we move forward.
Yeah.
The next thing is I didn't see any internal sidewalks for the walkability. A lot of our Portland zone mission is about walkability and mixed use communities, but a very walkable community. So if we could have some consideration to where and what portion the sidewalks may go would be helpful. DPW also had to mention, Amy, about the retention pond being outside the 75-foot stream setback. Has that change already been made and depicted on your plans?
The wet pond itself is outside of 75 foot.
Okay.
The only portion that's within 75 feet is the outfall,
The outfall?
and that's what we're permitting through DEP.
Okay. And he touched on, and I picked up too, the mechanical systems for phase one and phase two. There was nothing noted. Are we dealing all with rooftop mounted mechanicals, or are you going to have some proposals for us as to where they'll be on the ground? And if so,
Yeah.
how you're screening them?
Yeah, so we'll be putting in pad for an HVAC unit sort of on this portion of the building here, sort of between the employee entrances on that side, so near the building. It'll be on a 5-foot, 10 by 10-foot concrete pad.
So some of the buffering that you had there architecturally or landscaping-wise is going to change a little bit.
Yeah, it'll be sort of in that area in there. Yep.
Because, our design standards are pretty clear about calling out HVAC equipment
Yep.
in particular.
Yep.
While we're on design criteria, I guess, the conceptual profiles that you sent provided by Patco, was that for phase one only, the elevations?
Yes.
So this building's being multiplied in length along, the west elevation is going to basically double in size, correct?
Correct, and you'll see that the high point is here. So in this first phase, it all pitches towards the extended access road, and then on the phase two, it'll pitch towards the north side.
Okay.
Yes.
So I think one of the key things is, as we go through our review, is how this fits the design criteria set forth in our ordinance. And I'll admit that I'm usually one of the first ones in an industrial application to say, okay, we can be pretty lax in some of the ribbon and the striping. I'm in a real struggle with this one is because of the Portland Road District, its permitted uses and what the goal is. And we have this area that's kind of got a lot of permitted uses. It's kind of like the Wild West, right? And how do we buffer and transition from one type of use to the other? There's some very high density residential out there. Our community has called out that they want this walkability and small communities, and don't get me wrong, I think that it's great that we have these opportunities for new businesses to come to our town. I wish there was an industrial park that just had space and we could say, hey, this is the perfect spot for you. But you're looking at an option that's, permitted. And how do we as a board allow some of that change so it doesn't look like we're instantly in industrial park zone and, 500 yards away, we are back into high-density residential. It's kind of a question for me, and how we apply those design criteria. So that was one of them. And you touch base, so the fuel tanks that were in the back of the building by the relocated spillway for the package building, right? There's the wet pond, and just south of that, there was a note there. Are those basically motor fuel, like diesel, intended to be diesel fuels?
Yeah, the application had 1,000 gallon for diesel and 1,000 gallon for regular gas.
Were they planning on being above ground storage?
Correct,
Okay. But you've opted to take them off at this time?
at this time.
Okay. There was a mention from DPW about the cross culvert upgraded to a stream crossing passage. Is that where you're talking about your domestic sewer is going to go over? And are they feeling like they want to get away from a round culvert and go to like a live bottom culvert? Is that the preference of DPW?
I think that's what the comment was regarding, correct?
Okay.
But we're not proposing to replace that culvert.
Okay, so I guess we'll work through that process of review as far as the wildlife transfer that tends to be beneficial in a live bottom culvert. I was just wondering, do you have a map, and I'm not even sure if it's still applicable. It used to be that there had to be a clear fall radius from the existing like transmission towers, and there is on the back parcel, right? There's an easement that gets to a radio tower. Can we just kind of get a quick way at some point on future plans to know, one, if that still exists, and two, what the fall radii would be for that tower?
Yes, we already have that.
Okay.
Yeah, this building is outside of the fall radius. If we eventually build something, so our land actually extends way, way beyond and kind of across Waterfall Drive. If we ever were to develop something over in this section of our land, it would be within the fall zone. But I can provide that for you guys.
Yeah, I mean,
But,
if you already
yeah,
have
but-
the data, it wouldn't
Yeah.
be, yes. Hatched area. I had a question about the capacity to serve, and I get it, you presented everything as, we're planning on doing this in 2 phases, so I'm assuming you're asking us to approve, a phased development, phase 1 and phase 2. You want to come to us once, and then whenever you're ready to do phase 2, you're already permitted, ready to go. But I didn't always see the breakout, and I had a hard time when I was reviewing the water resource and recovery approval. It didn't necessarily say for phase 1 or phase 2 or any particular square footages. I mean, and maybe this is something that staff could just ask, was it approved for the first 37,500 feet?
We requested for the full build-out. for
Okay.
Capacity.
So
Yep. So the gallons per
gallons per day?
day that we included was based on, what we need for phase 1 and then doubling that for phase 2.
So maybe we can just ask for clarification that, yes, they were thumbs up for both phase 1 and
Yep,
phase 2.
yep.
Now, there was a grease trap that was noted for a 1,500 or 2,000 gallon grease trap. Is that because you're planning on possibly doing something else? Or is it because of the type of cleaning that has to take place for
Yeah,
the
the-
rental equipment?
Yeah, the tenant washes dishes. So as part of that commercial
Okay.
dishwasher, they'll have that. And it'll be, we'll add it to the plans and it'll be external to the building.
Okay. I had questions on parking, but I think you and Jim kind of nailed that one. Great. The traffic peer review was kind of I don't know if they were requesting or suggesting a updated letter from the Department of Transportation for the additional trips, even though it falls under the requirement for a TMP. They felt, or at least I interpreted, maybe I misread that. I kind of felt like they were hopeful that maybe you could get a letter from DOT, that it wouldn't cause an undue burden.
Yeah, I mean, we have been in communication with DOT, but we wanted to get the peer review comments from VHB first and get their opinions, and then we'll get the concurrence letter from DOT.
Because that's essentially what I interpreted. Maybe you interpreted the same thing from VHB, is that they're saying, hey, we know it won't trigger a TMP, but it would be good to get a letter.
Correct.
Okay. The other thing that they mentioned is the crash history for Route 1 and Flag Pond Road. It met one of the criteria that would have possibly started to trigger it into being a high crash area, but it hasn't either met the second one. So they suggested getting the crash
Some additional-
details
Yeah, we'll provide those additional details with our response.
because of the turning movements. And that also for me is, it's, classified as a warehouse, right? That's, you're intending it as a warehouse versus is it a truck depot with the box truck parking out back? I don't know, one's a permitted use, it's probably very good to stay with one versus the other. But can we get some turning overlay movements for vehicular circulation on site? Because you're intending to have, larger box trucks. You had a concrete pad, like a 43-foot concrete pad for the landing gear, so you're intending on having semi-trucks to the loading docks. Can we get some turning movements overlaid?
So our application does include turning movements
I
for a
missed it.
fire truck and for a semi-tractor trailer.
Okay, so if I missed
It's
it,
in
I
the- it's in the
apologize.
application.
So,
Within the site, yeah.
and then will there be any specific wayfinding directions as far as exiting the site for the trucks? Will you be requiring them all to kind of exit to the left and use the signalized intersection? Or are you going to let them have the option? Or is that going to be a recommendation that you kind of come to with DOT and the peer review?
Yeah, that was part of the package development. There is wayfinding signage on the front part of the site. We may add some real simple signage towards the rear of the extended section of the internal road, but I think the signage that you're probably looking for is in place.
So we can probably see some of that tomorrow during a site walk. Perfect. Yeah, and I hit the architectural design again, if we can kind of just think about that. And buffering, Joyce, I think was another important one. That was all I had, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your time.
Great, thank you, Jeff. Any other questions, thoughts? Chris?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I second some of Jeff's arguments, particularly about sidewalks. At a minimum, I would like to see the existing sidewalk on Waterfall Drive extended, and then I think it would be great to have some internal sidewalks as well, just for that walkability. And that's, the way the city wants development to go, and I think that would be a great fit for this project. I had a question about the Phase 2 development. What would be the ideal perfect tenant for that space? And do you see them, to Jeff's point, having a lot of semi-truck traffic, or are you thinking similar to the first tenant, or be more larger kind of box truck type vehicles? Or
Yeah, it's a good question. The hope and the discussions we've had with One Stop is that they're going to expand and occupy the whole building.
Okay.
The way we're crafting the language in our lease with them is that, they have the right to that space, but if they don't want to, exercise that, then we as the developer will have the right to bring in a second user. Our goal is to, if that were to be the case, is to bring in another industrial user who's probably going to have 6 to 8 loading docks on the backside, so very similar use to One Stop and to Pack Edge. So there likely will be some, more box truck or a tractor trailer use, in that rear area.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that makes perfect sense to me. Trying to keep uses the same. Do you have an idea, like in a perfect world, what your time frame would be from finishing the first building to starting and finishing the second?
Likely 5 to 7 years. If it can happen sooner, we think that'd be great, obviously. But,
Yeah.
it's probably 5 to 7 years, maybe 10 years at the most.
Okay.
Yeah, so, these folks clearly have a need to expand out of their current South Portland location, and, they have even indicated at times, that they could take this entire building right now, and we kind of asked them, to be realistic, and so that's where we came up with phase 1 and phase 2, so.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and similar again to Jeff's point about the design of the building. Again, there's ordinances that we have to follow, obviously, but yeah, I think anything we could do to help make it blend better with the residential uses that could be in that area, I think would definitely help. Particularly on the backside, if as things get developed, if right now, no, there's nothing to see back there. It's just trees and whatnot. But further down the road, there could be mixed-use buildings, and anything we could do to kind of make things look better is always a win. But yeah, that was the only thoughts I had.
So I just wanted to make a comment that there'll be with the stream that's adjacent to Waterfall Drive, there'll be a pretty extensive vegetative buffer that's going to be preserved. So, views from the extended Waterfall Drive into the site will be significantly limited because of that. The only sort of opening will be where that sewer line's going through, but otherwise the vegetation will be sort of blocking that pretty significantly. Yeah.
Great, thank you, Chris. Any other thoughts or questions from board members? My list, I think Jeff hit everything on my list as well. I share his comments and thoughts. As a few of our board members have mentioned, the city's working through this Portland Road and elevating it and working through it. So I strongly agree with even Joyce's comments and just the landscaping and how this is presented from Portland Road. So and I'm not sure, I don't think I was part of the final review. I'm not sure, I can't remember that far back. But there's this whole area for me is lacking landscaping heavily. And we're gonna further remove landscaping. And to Jeff's point of this, Portland Road is, while we have allowed uses, is non-industrial park, and we don't want it to look or feel or give that presentation of industrial park. So I think particular attention, I think, to screening and landscaping and how this presents from Portland Road and the architectural design component of it. I think those are all going to be important pieces to this puzzle here.
Yeah, go ahead.
But I think overall, I think it works. I mean, I don't see any major hurdles or components to me. I think the waiver, Jim was asking good questions about that. The parking, I think, historically, we like to see, I think we tend to support less parking. We don't want sea of asphalt. So to the question and thought about the reduced parking and then 3 or so acres of pavement in the back, and I think that's where Jeff was asking about the turning radiuses, and I couldn't find it in here quickly enough myself, but there's landscape islands, and we understand the use and how the plan functions. But I think understanding that maybe more and adding some clarity to reduce parking, but then more sea of pavement in the back with no landscaped islands is, I'm not sure I favor the trade-off there, but I don't know, I think that's my overall thoughts there, but.
Yeah, just some comments kind of in response. I'll start with this, the rear, the paved area. I mean, we have spent a great deal of time meeting and talking with the programming for this particular user, and this is what they require for the rear loading dock area. To break it up with landscape islands is going to be pretty disruptive and detrimental to their operations. This is not. In concept and function, this is not a whole lot different than the package area. It's obviously a little bit more square footage. To comment on some of the, or to respond to some of the landscape comments, I mean, we feel like we're adding a fair amount of landscaping here. It doesn't really look like that because it's on paper. There is a fair amount of landscaping kind of in this open area of a package, and just to point out, this front pad site is going to be some sort of retail, maybe a bank, something someday that is going to become the kind of the focal point of this site from Route 1. The package building, and certainly this building is going to kind of fade away someday, and we could focus pretty heavily on the landscaping and the aesthetic of that building design when the time comes. Just jumping around, so there's been a couple comments on sidewalks. We're not surprised to hear that. We do have a sidewalk that runs from the front of Pack Edge kind of out along this internal roadway that connects with Route 1. We can certainly add the sidewalk. It would probably have to be somewhere along this roadway. That's a long run, and we have discussed that with our tenant. They've told us, frankly, they are never going to use it. We've talked about it with Pack Edge. They don't ever use their sidewalk, but if it's needed and being asked for, then we can accommodate. It's just, that's a lot of sidewalk, for us to maintain and clear and sand and salt. Just to point that out. But yeah, I mean, I think if anyone from either of these two industrial buildings are going to be going anywhere nearby, they're going to be in their car. But again, if we need to add it, then I don't see any issue with that.
I also just wanted to respond to the comment about, the architecture and what you're going to see from Route 1. So again, what you're going to primarily see is that corner of the building, which will have glass and all have, differentiating color, and it's meant to be very welcoming and, sort of a lovely entrance into this showroom that they have. I mean, they cater to wedding events and things, so they're going to have lovely interior showroom, displaying all of their wares. So that will be the focus, and what you'll see mainly from Route 1 will be that corner. The additional Phase 2 building won't have that. It's going to be more of the gray siding and the blue stripe, but that'll also be somewhat screened by Pack Edge. And I think, to your point, eventually you'll have less and less of that visible as the other building gets put in. And to focus on the landscaping that'll be along the building and in the parking lot and along the front edges here, so that'll tend, over time, will sort of break down in the massing of that building. So just seeing, that's the primary thing you're going to see is that Phase 1 building from
Sure.
Route 1.
So perhaps a 3D rendering from either the intersection or some place that I think would help that. I mean, it's, there's a board member, Jeff, maybe, Jim, that asked about that second building, and it's, if I can find it quickly here, I mean, it's a pretty big building, it's pretty significant, so, 6 foot high, 2.5 caliper trees is only the size of a door compared to the whole big picture piece. So it's, I know we have that pad in the front and there's that opportunity, but there's, I guess I'm looking at the whole thing holistically, and I know you said industrial building, and we're still, we don't want this to look like an industrial park out here. We do have Hancock there. We're trying to work all the pieces to the puzzle here, but again, it's Portland Road. It's not an industrial park, so I guess that's my That's my big concern, is that this doesn't turn into an industrial park and look like an industrial park, that's all.
Yeah, and just to comment on that, I mean, yeah, this will be we don't have enough land to build an industrial park. This will be the last industrial building on our land here. This is pretty far back, from Route 1. It's really far back. We can add some large trees, if that's what the city is going to require of us. That's, no issue really. This is pretty far back though. We can see that tomorrow.
Great, thank you. Jeff?
I just want to touch base because I think we're kind of trying to communicate the same things here. And, I read through the permitted uses and I read through the comprehensive plan, which is supposed to kind of guide our theming, right, for this area or all areas of town, and in this area in particular. And when we talk about that walkability and the multi-mixed use, and I think it's great that you have a tenant that wants to be in Saco. I think it would be even better if we had 37,000 square feet that maybe a technological manufacturing company that maybe needs those back 100 parking spots, so there could be some good paying jobs, and then we could have that walkability from the neighboring residential, high density residential to walk here, right? And that's what their theme is, and that's what I feel like I'm being tasked with, is how do I apply those standards in asking for a sidewalk? And I completely respect tenant that you have has been in our communities for a while, and they know what they need. It doesn't involve sidewalks. Nobody walks to their business. But we need to be forward-thinking more than 5 or 7 years, right? And we need to be thinking above and beyond, hey, what's the view from the intersection going to be versus what's the view from when Waterfall Drive is going to be completed, right? We're taking Waterfall Drive to bring us into something that we're striving for very nice residential, mixed use, mixed purpose. It's going to connect through. And what's it going to look like when we feel like we're driving through the back of what very industrial trucking depot or loading dock area? So all of the views are kind of where I feel like I'm being tasked with applying our standards, right? And yes, like I said, I can tend to, when we're looking at an industrial building, let some kind of design features go. A border stripe is okay for a design feature. But when you start talking about festoons and windows and arches or an architectural feature on every 50 feet of wall, it really paints a different picture, right? Is there something that you can do on the front side that is going to give us some of those awning features or an overhang or something that adds a little design without changing a lot of your building? Because you're right, it's a 27-foot tall building. It's a relatively high building. So I echo that, and I don't want to discourage, because I too struggle with the ordinance, and the permitted uses are pretty vague out there. It's a pretty wide open area, but how do we, as we sit on a board, try to let you guys develop and continue to make a harmonious theme, or at least a theme that can transition well? So when I try to apply those standards and design standards, that's what I'm looking at. It could be multiple sides, because we have to address the view. Waterfall Drive is not a street that's deemed to be a dead-end street forever. That's part of a much bigger plan, and we have to incorporate the perceived view from that side. So, during the site walk tomorrow, it'll be nice to get a sense of meets and bounds and kind of set back a little bit. Hopefully those corner pins are marked for us, and then the building layout, so we can get a sense of where it is and the limits of clearing. But hopefully we can make something work, but those are the weights that I feel like I'm trying to carry on this board.
That makes sense. Well said. That all makes perfect sense. The uncertain thing for us is that we have no control over Waterfall Drive, and we have no idea when that's going to become a real road. We've been told that that's going to happen someday, but that could be 20 years. We just have no idea. So if we could get some kind of confidence, that's going to happen someday, which you probably can't give me, but that makes sense. We would love to connect to it, but we just can't plan for it, because we have no idea what's going to happen, with that road. Hopefully it gets upgraded someday soon.
Sorry, I don't think you were talking about connecting to Waterfall Drive. You were just talking about the view.
No, we're not, but I think
Absolutely.
I think that's where this is going, is that that eventually connects. That's kind of how I interpreted that.
Yeah, because we too have the vision and have been told that that's going to, for connectivity through, and then at that point, it's public road that people are going to be viewing this parcel from. So there are kind of like two street sides, right?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, when you come down Waterfall Drive now, you can see into the back side of Hancock Lumber, and their fencing comes up close to the road, and the existing detention basin that's here now, but, you know, it's got some vegetation around it, it's sort of somewhat naturalized. And again, as I was mentioning, you know, we're going to be preserving a good chunk of vegetation because the stream is, you know, the stream starts with this detention area and then kind of comes through here. So all of this vegetation between Waterfall Drive and the project site, you know, our wet pond as well as that back pavement will be screened from Waterfall Drive, except for that one area where we're connecting our sewer line, which is, you know, that's a narrow area. But you'll see that tomorrow where that, at least where that connection is now.
Great, thank you. Catherine?
I just have a quick question. I saw a neighborhood meeting advertised in June. Did any members of the public attend that?
Yes, we had one member of the public attend, and, you'll have to help me out, I can't remember where he was living. It was, he's back here,
Yeah, he lives
somewhere in
back here
here.
somewhere, yeah.
Yeah. He didn't necessarily have concerns about this particular development. I think, strangely, at that time, he was something about, like, low-lying fumes or something. I can't remember what his comments were, but he was very nice and just, you know, he just wanted to get some background information, but didn't
Okay,
have
so
any
the general-
concerns specific to our project.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other thoughts from board members?
I think if we're done, if we're ready, it's advertised as a public hearing, I'd be ready to make a motion if you feel like we're ready, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
Mr. Chair, I move that we open the public hearing for 995 Portland Road.
Second.
Thank you for the motion, Jeff, and the second, Jim. Any additional discussion on the motion to open a public hearing on this item? All right, those in favor, Chris?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
I'll vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0 to open a public hearing on this item. If anyone is with us this evening that would like to speak on this item, please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record, and we will collect comments and address them accordingly.
Mr. Chair, seeing no members of the public choosing to come forward, I move that we continue the public hearing. Just in the event that do we have a date that we want to set it to?
September 1st.
I move that we continue the public hearing to September 1st, 2026.
I'll second.
Thank you for the motion, Jeff, and the second, Joyce. Any additional discussion on the motion? All right, those in favor, Chris?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
I'll vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0. All right, any other thoughts or questions, concerns from board members? Catherine?
I just have a question about parking tomorrow. Are we parking in the lot of Package?
Back in here. Park back there.
Yeah, that's a good question. We can,
Or
we can
along the
park,
access
we
drive,
can
maybe?
park kind of in this, either in this area right here or out back here. There should be, there should be space.
Okay,
We could
so-
park way up front here, but then we gotta walk back. So we
Right.
can.
But there won't be
probably
like deliveries back there we need to worry about?
What's that?
There won't be like deliveries we need to worry about?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Good question.
Yes, thank you, Catherine. Jeff?
Just wanted to check with staff. Is this one of the parcels that was under a contract zone? We received our public correspondence and want to make sure that it's not including this parcel, because it referenced Cascade Road, and I thought it was just, the Park North area that we were concerned about, so.
Yeah, it's not part of that contract zone. I don't know about other lists. I can double check the list of contract zones, but I know this is not part of the Park North contract zone. It's outside of it.
Okay.
Yeah, this is not in a contract zone as far as we know. But
Great. Any other thoughts or questions from board members? All right, so we've given you a few comments here. You mentioned you're still working through some of the items to respond to. And then, Charles, you mentioned September 1st that we could potentially see this application again or continue our discussion. So any other thoughts or questions for us?
I don't think so. I think we're all set. Yeah, so we're working on our responses, by the 31st, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll have a full response that includes all of the peer review, staff, and planning board comments. We'll get that together by the end of the month.
Okay.
And we're ready for you tomorrow. We have the road, the building, and all that area is staked out, so, with a map. So we can provide a map to you, so you can, as we're looking around, you'll get some good orientation.
Okay. Great. Thank you. So any other thoughts?
Mr. Chair, do we need a motion to continue application review till September 1st?
Thank you for the motion, Jim.
I would second that.
Thank you for the second, Jeff. Any additional discussion to continue application review to September 1st? All right, those in favor, Chris?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
A vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0. So we'll see you tomorrow and then on the 1st.
Yep, thank you.
Great.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can we take a quick break before the next item?
Sure, we can, we'll take a quick 5 or 6 minute recess. We will continue with our applications under review this evening with item 9C. This is 991 Portland Road, map 63, lot 6, and this is a public hearing and application review for site plan approval of a 5-building mixed-use development. Charles, anything to add on this item before we begin?
Not at this time.
All right, thank you. Board members, any conflicts or disclosures before we begin? All right, and with that, we will turn it over to the applicant.
All right, good evening. Matthew Orr, civil engineer with Saco Technics, here this evening with the applicant for Park North Development for the Villages. We've been here a few times. I think when we were here last month, we just had a few items to clarify for you all, largely with respect to the phasing and different components of the utilities, as well as trips and parking allocations. This here is the overall site layout that we've been showing for 5 buildings across multiple phases for mixed-use development. And then with that, in our most recent submission of materials, we did supply a phasing plan to help clarify those sections of what we've been discussing in previous meetings with you all, just to help identify more clearly where the parking associated with those phases, as well as the actual building and amenities around them. We have also, since our last meeting, received a more breakdown from the sewer department as far as capacity for phase 1. I know that was a point of discussion last time, so as that is the building at this time that we're looking to move forward with towards construction, ensuring that everything is adequate as far as phase 1 goes, has been checked off there. And then I think, we were just looking forward to getting to the final steps here with the conditions and findings. So if there's anything else that we can discuss this evening in relation to our most recent materials, we're here and happy to speak about it.
Great, thank you, sir. Board members, any questions for the applicant at this time? Catherine.
I just have a small question. There's a pad for a food truck, right? How many, is it just one food truck or multiple food trucks? The space? And I ask because the traffic peer reviewer asked about parking requirements for the food truck. If it's one, I would assume that it's not going to drive a whole lot of traffic just itself. It'll just be people who are sort of already there, maybe?
To begin with, just one food truck. The business that we have going into Building 1 is a dog bar, to keep it simplistic. And so they won't be preparing food on site. So for people, they'll be serving drinks and prepackaged food. So anybody that wants made food, the food truck would be there to service those customers while they're open.
Okay. Do you envision having the food truck there all the time, or will it just be certain hours or days?
We don't fully have that nailed down right now. We're hoping to obviously have a food truck that would stay there consistently. It may not be open consistently, but what we don't want is food trucks pulling in and pulling out on a regular basis. So we'd like to have a food truck there that people could count on, that has, a decent mixture of food, and to be able to service the customers of the tenant going into Building 1.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Any other thoughts from board members? Jeff?
I'm just trying to come up with the phasing plan. I know Matt and you guys have tried to explain it to me a couple times, and I'm still trying to figure out why you would leave buildings 4 and 5 until the very end. I mean, when all those materials are coming in, where is the staging going to take place? It's almost like you have to access from the Route 1 frontage, as to where if you had left maybe the blue building as the last phase, you could be using all of that blue parking area as laydown and just kind of work your way back out. And I think you tried to explain it to me before, and I guess I don't get it. I mean, I think it's pedestrian circulation you're trying to work on, but I would think that if we keep all of your construction equipment out of, you know, the Waterfall Drive and Ziggy's Way, and you're kind of working into that back corner and down, that it would be safer for the occupants of the previous phases that are being done. And I guess I'm just having a hard time with how are you going to stage and get all your equipment and without causing a safety concern on Route 1 during the last phase.
We very well might not go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This very well may be a case of 1, 2, 4, 5, 3.
Okay.
So they're numbered on the plan, and many times, in almost all our projects, there always seems to be, you bounce from one to the other depending upon accessibility, need, want, market. There's a lot of things that drive that. Now, if between this phase getting going, if somebody came along later this year, a larger tenant, and said, I want to be in building 4, phase 4 maybe end up being physically phase 2, maybe the second phase to actually be built. 1 and 2 are probably pretty secure. Obviously, 1 is. 2 is secured because we want to, the idea is to bring in the amenities. And as most developers, a lot of times we hold back on the amenities for financial reasons, maintenance reasons. There's hardly anybody there to help pay for those or to enjoy them. In this case, we think the amenities are a big part of the selling point to be here. So we wanted those to get in early, so that's why you see everything in phase 2. Obviously, we do have some coordination in what you see as phase 3 and phase 4 and phase 5. Just like you said, is somebody going to give us temporary access off Route 1? I'm certainly not going to count on that. We have the ability to go to the neighbor just to the south of us, that we may be able to go through his driveway and get some accessibility there, but certainly using phase 3 parking lot as staging for 4 and 5 probably is what's going to realistically happen. But I certainly can't swear that it's going to not go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I can't swear that it is going that way.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Any other thoughts from board members?
With that, Mr. Chair, if you have no comments, I would move that we reopen the public hearing for 991 Portland Road.
Second.
Thank you for the motion, Jeff, and the second, Jim. Any discussion on the motion to open a public hearing? All right, those in favor, Chris?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
I'll vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0 to reopen a public hearing. If anyone is with us this evening that would like to speak on this item, please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record, and we will collect comments and address them accordingly.
Good evening. My name is Inga Brown, and I live at 161 Simpson Road in Ward 1. I'm not here this evening to really speak on the merits of this proposal or the demerits. It's a very interesting project. I am looking at this project through the lens of the contract zone, and that all pre-2021 contract zones were repealed by City Council in January of 2021. I do see that staff has added in tonight's packet a copy of the standard operating procedure, which was the administrative intent of the city council of how to handle these contract zones moving forward. But I am concerned, just on the face of things, that these contract zones that are repealed are still being presented as contract zones. Anyone reading these application materials would see that it's identified as a contract zone, and I am frankly kind of flummoxed over that. And I believe that the city owes everyone, all stakeholders, the planning board, the applicant, citizens, more exact clarification of this project's vested rights. So this contract zone is repealed. The staff have reviewed some of the permits that have been approved. No one knows. You don't know. I don't know. The public doesn't know. I'm not sure if the applicant understands. I hope maybe he does. I'm not sure. No one understands what approvals, what building permits, what site plan approvals, what have been reviewed by staff in order to come up with Park North as a vested contract zone. So, as you may know, there are 3 vested contract zones: Cascade Road, Park North, and the Ecology School. And I would like to draw your attention, and I would ask you to ask questions about the letter that was submitted into the packet by Mr. Michael Dalem. Mr. Dalem and I also submitted a cover letter outlining concerns about vested rights. Let me be clear. The city's definition of substantial construction, while it is, of course, in the zoning ordinance, is a limited view of the actual definition of vested rights. The city is not reviewing this application with a definition of vested rights that is lawful with state statute. And I would like to draw your attention to Mr. Dalem's letter at the bottom of page 1. The standard operating identifies 3 vested contract zones. I won't repeat them again. And Maine courts look at 3 core factors to determine vested rights. I would present to you that city staff and council have not applied the state definition of vested rights. Number 1, the core determination, valid permits. You must hold legally acquired final development permits that are no longer subject to appeal or judicial review. And the court notes that the final project permits must be in place before any consideration of the next 2 core factors. Core factor number 2 is substantial expenditures. You must spend a substantial amount of money in good faith. And number 3, actual construction. And there's no actual construction on this particular site plan application before you this evening. No building permits have been issued. This is an initial site plan. And again, I want to be really clear. I have been, for full disclosure, as many of you know, talking about contract zones at City Council and at Planning Board for about 10 years now. And I have no issues with the merits of this project. I am simply talking about this through the lens of the repealed contract zones. The application before you this evening is an initial site plan. This is not an amendment to an existing site plan application. This is a brand new site plan. The very nature of that says to me that the applicable permits have not been approved. These finding of the facts, your information in your packet tonight, the things that you will be ruling on are appealable. This is not fitting the definition of the state ordinance on vested rights. Why do I care about this? Because the city's review of the repealed contract zones has been incomplete. City Council has requested on numerous occasions from staff clear identification of the permits, the approvals that staff use to identify 3 of these contract zones, repealed contract zones, as having vested rights. I am concerned about the legality of this review. I am concerned that the city is actually going backwards, not forwards, in its attempts to clean up the inadvertent repeal of the 1985 zoning ordinance, and everyone is flying blind. I will be transparent with you. I have a pending FOA with the city of Saco. I have asked to see the communications, records, documents that the contract zone holders themselves have received from the city. What do these contract zone holders actually understand about the validity of their repealed contract zones? Were they told, these 3 contract zones, that you have vested rights? Were they told what that identification was based on? We are operating on legal vapors. So I will ask you, if you have not carefully reviewed Mr. Dalem's letter, I would ask you to look at it. I would ask you to actually ask, what zoning authority do we have to move forward with a new site plan application for a project that no longer has an active contract zone? Park North contract zone became a legally non-conforming use on the day that the council voted to repeal the ordinance. I'll say it again. The Park North contract zone is repealed. It became a legally non-conforming use on the day the council voted to repeal the ordinance. This application, if it should be reviewed at all, can only be reviewed through the Portland Road zoning classification. You cannot amend a site plan. You cannot, sorry, they don't have a site plan for this parcel. You cannot amend a contract zone. You cannot move forward with a brand new site plan application. So I did come to the meeting on June 16th. I meant to speak at that meeting. That meeting ran extremely late, and I could not give my testimony then. So I would ask, as Mr. Dalem closes his letter, the city needs summary judgment from the court on the vested rights of these 3 projects so that everybody understands what applications can move forward with clarity and legality and following the local and state ordinances, which is something we all care about. I know you care about it. I care about it, and I'm sure the applicant cares about it as well. I'd ask you to leave the hearing open. I'm sure there will be further comments this evening. And lastly, just because I've spoken about this before on many projects, on page 55 in your packet, the financial capacity letter from Androscoggin Bank is not a robust confirmation that the bank is willing or considering funding for this project. It is merely a superficial letter that they've talked with the applicant and that it is likely the cost for the project would be funded by a combination of debt and equity. But Androscoggin Bank makes no hint at even willing to fund the project. There have been other questions on financial capacity with other projects through the years, and the city still, I think, needs to increase our standards for financial capacity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, seeing no one else interested in speaking this evening, I move that we close the public hearing.
Thank you for the motion, Jim.
I'll second that motion.
Second by Chris. Any additional discussion? Jeff?
I don't know, I would I'd really be in favor of continuing. I read the applicant's, Mr. Dellum's letter in great detail. Really raised a lot of thoughts for me. And I would just like to have, because I kind of think that the applicant before us, everything would fall under what's a permitted use in our new zoning for the Portland Road District. No issue, other than the fact that for some reason we keep having insertions in our documentation and packet referencing a contract zone. I would feel better if we had that sort of clarity from legal counsel, because I think that there are much bigger trickle-down pieces than the applicant before us, right? And their contract zone, the way I read it, was pretty open. It allowed a lot of use, but we've now incorporated that into the city's vision of zoning for that Portland Road District. The other two contract zones could have very steep repercussions, and I hate any action that we're doing tonight to affect our ability to navigate those other contract zones in the future. So, and I know that we've gotten a little bit of feedback before, but it's never been a really decisive answer, in my opinion, from the legal review saying, this is how you move forward. And maybe staff feels confident, maybe they feel as kind of foggy as I feel, kind of walking through this. Both sides have very compelling arguments. And I kind of agree. I think it's important that we would address that kind of looming shadow in the room before we move on this one, because then just by precedence that we're saying, okay, we're not going to view the outfall of the contract zone repeal. And that's just kind of where I am. I don't want to intentionally hold up this applicant, but I think that getting some sort of a review for the other two vested, as staff has deemed three vested contract zones, I think it's important that we know how we're navigating them. And if it's as simple as removing the reference to contract zones on this application, it makes sense to me to get that cleaned up. But I don't want to say, oh, well, we didn't apply it on contract zone A, now we have to do the same on B and C. That's my concern. So I would like it if we would consider, at the very least, just keeping the public hearing open so we're not ticking on that time. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Charles?
I just want to remind the planning board that their role is to review the pending application to the current zoning standards. This is not a staff SOP. This was a city council approved SOP that included these contract zones as vested, including the Park North. It is not really before the board for policy, because the planning board's job is to look at this based on the zoning ordinances and the precedents is set, and that's set at city council level. So this SOP adopted by city council in November, vest these three, so then the applicant moved forward with their application under that, framework of the zoning ordinance. So that's where we're at. That's how we review this application. The Portland Road Zoning District is still part of this application. It ties into the contract zone as well. But based on city council action and this SOP, the Park North contract zone is vested. They have their substantial construction completed. And that SOP also has the legal guidance provided and legal reasoning within there. So that would be my recommendation to the planning board, is to review it based on what has been approved.
In this application is also, like you said, being reviewed for the Park North, through the Portland Road Zoning District, which that's what's before us, that's what we've reviewed, and that's additional criteria that this application we're tasked to make sure it's been met with.
It's a
Right.
similar way that anything in the Park North is also within the Resource Protection Overlay District. So while the Park North contract zone sets those dimensional standards and uses, the Portland Road is also part of it, but the Park North contract zone is the primary zoning this project is reviewed against.
Sure, and perhaps maybe a little quickly, a confusing part is the Park North contract zone encompassed so many lots that's not, it's not the same as one particular lot that's maybe a contract zone that we have others of. This encompasses many lots, and this is not an amendment to any contract zone or anything like this. This is just site plan, and it's also part of Portland Road review and et cetera. And we've had legal counsel provide maybe even 2 letters and have come and talked about it as well. So, okay, hey, Jim.
So I move to close the public hearing because I think that issue of the contract zone is really a red herring. The city council, after much thought and work, and apparently with review from their council, came to the conclusion that Park North contract zone had vested rights. And they included that as an exhibit to their order, which passed the council 6-0 on November 24th of 2025. And Councilor Johnson made some very helpful comments, sort of setting the stage for that vote. So I see this as there's no issue anymore, at least from our perspective. There shouldn't be an issue from our perspective that the Park North contract zone does not have vested rights. I think it clearly does, based upon that city council order and their attorney's guidance. So I don't think we need to do any exhaustive analysis of that. I think the issue's been decided, and we should just move on. So that's why I moved to close the public hearing, because I didn't see any reason for any delay based upon that issue.
Thank you, Jim. Any other thoughts, Chris?
Yeah, I second Jim's opinion. As far as I can tell, I think this has been pretty well decided. And I think if there is something to do with these contract zones, that it's a bigger issue than the planning board. And I think that that would be an issue that would have to be done through legal channels, council, and isn't, as far as my understanding, the current legal standing of this application, there's nothing in the ordinance that's stopping us from approving it as is. And if there's a deeper legal issue that hasn't been resolved, I don't think that falls on us as a burden to deal with it tonight or any subsequent meeting. I think if there was an issue at this point, it would have come up as far as our purview. At least that's my view of the situation.
Thank you, Chris. Jeff?
I just want to touch base that all of our training is always about us reviewing whether we have the authority to make a ruling or a hearing on what's before us, and we typically go to zoning. And this is not my area of expertise. I read a letter that's very detailed and with somebody that has quite a bit of historical knowledge about this matter, and you're kind of applying those litmus tests, if you will, and I read it and go, huh, that seems pretty straightforward to me as a layperson, right? Now, I obviously lean towards you guys that have had a little bit more experience reading that type of documentation. And I guess where we've all referenced the council's ruling, and I agree because it's not up to us. So Chris and my response would be, is that if we don't have the authority, it's just put the brakes on and wait, okay? Wait until we have that. So at this point, we have the beauty of having a well-versed council liaison. Is it possible we could ask his opinion that they looked it over, they had the city solicitor guide them, and that's why they made that ruling? And if that's the case, and we're just looking at this like it was any other zoning that's presented, because I would view an underlying district, then no need to delay. Maybe if we just have a few minutes, if Councilor Johnson is willing to attest that that's what the vision was with that 6-0 vote, then we could kind of move on. I feel like we've addressed it. I don't want to incur additional costs and delay to have the city solicitor give us the same response that council asked for, because they are the authoritative body. But if there is a question, I don't want to make a ruling that would be outside our purview and our rights as a board to hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Councilor Johnson, do you have any brief clarity or comment to add to, or insight that you'd like to add?
I don't know if I really do, because I'm trying not to speak on behalf of council. But I think what I would add is that I would agree with planning board members Moeller and Gagnon in regards to council approved what we approved, and that kind of set you all a path forward, referring back to that document. Personally, I think there are certainly still questions that remain. I would agree with Ms. Brown's comments, but I don't necessarily think that's really in the purview of the planning board with relation to this application. But I don't know if that's helpful, but I think that's where I'm comfortable leaving it at.
That's fine. Thank you, sir. Any other? Joyce?
I mean, I'll weigh in just, I mean, Exhibit A of the SOP clearly indicates that Park North contract zone is a vested contract zone per the council. So that's what the council has told us. I think that's what we have to treat it as. They're a vested contract zone, and so we're reviewing the application as such under the rules of the contract zone.
Great, thank you.
And I'd point out too, when you're talking about precedent, I mean, we've approved a number of other developments in Park North within the past couple of years. We have Aroma Joe's, we have the new apartments out behind Ziggy's.
Family Center, 2 people on ECU Parkway.
Yeah,
My
I mean,
90 unit.
Yeah, those are a little further back, but within the, I think those were.
They're in this contract
In the
zone.
past year, we've approved additional development in that contract zone. And at the time, we determined, yes, this is a vested contract zone. We've already gone through this with a couple of recent
Sure.
projects.
All right, any other discussion? All right, so a motion has been made by Jim, seconded by Chris to close the public hearing. Those in favor, Chris?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
I'll vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0. All right, back to the board for additional discussion. Any other thoughts, questions, comments, concerns for the applicant?
I do share the concerns about the financial capacity letter. It's pretty vague. It doesn't really provide numbers. Typically, we like to see some information about the estimated costs of the project, not necessarily phase by phase, but the project as a whole. And this is just Maureen saying, yeah, I'm sure Elliot's good for it. It would be nice to have something more specific that's actually tied to the specifics of the project.
You just need to look back and put that into context. When we first make application, before we know anything, we're asked to provide a financial letter. We have no idea what costs are at that point. We can take a pretty good educated guess, but we're asked to supply a letter at that point. The woman that spoke earlier, who was allowed to go way beyond her 5 minutes, spoke about the council needs to tighten up the standards. Saco has one of the tightest standards we've ever dealt with. When you go post a letter of credit, which we have to do before we start any work, so call that letter informal or feel good, call it whatever you want. We can't move forward until we actually produce a letter of credit at 1.5 times. I've complained about that the entire time I've developed in Saco, and it's never changed. Do you know how hard it is? When you're doing a $100,000 project, not a big deal. When you're doing a multi-million-dollar project and you got to produce equity for 50% more, and it's of fake equity, that's not an easy thing to do. No other town does that. So if this project is $3 or $4 million, I got to produce a letter of credit for $6 million. Bank goes, where's that extra $2 million of equity? I got to find a way to do that. A senior loan officer for a well-established bank does not write that letter, and she doesn't put her name on it unless she's convinced we have the ability, because of our long-standing relationship. And Andrew Scoggins, the only bank we've used in Park North Development. She knows we can make that happen. She does, no loan officer puts their name on a letter unless they're convinced that loan can happen. And that person has the ability to make that letter of credit that the city is going to ask for come true.
Jeff?
I have to concur with Joyce. I mean, you've been doing business with us for a long time, or working in our community for a long time, doing business with a bank. It has been something I've been working for very consistently to have at least a number. Between you and Matt, you guys at this point have a conceptual number of what infrastructure and what buildings are going to cost. And even if it's not dead on, the bank should be able to say, Mr. Chamberlain's project for Phase A is going to be $3.5 million, and we have a relationship and intend, if approved, we would be highly likely to lend him. That is the sort of information that we typically like to see as a board, because there's intent there. And then you handle the final number with staff on the back end. But I think it's very important that anybody has a scope of what it is, because it doesn't even really talk about the location of the project. I think those are important things to tie it together. As a board, we want to see a bank saying, a project at 991 Portland Road, anticipated costs of $3.5 million, and if approved, we have, very strong intentions of working with Mr. Chamberlain's company to make this happen.
But your point during your conversation was, at this point. I agree, at this point, I do have some pretty good numbers. But you're asking for the letter well before I know those numbers. If you ask me to supply that letter tomorrow, yeah, I could put a number to it.
I will also add that this letter does satisfy, state law and court law that discusses financial capacity. And again, one of the conditions of approval, which is standard to all of our projects, plus part of our code, is that financial guarantee of 150%. So that needs to be established before we go to pre-construction meeting, before any site work occurs. So this does, I hear what you're saying, Member Roshu, about the, you want more specific numbers. I understand that, but this is a very standard financial capacity letter that these banks really do. What we do look for these are ensuring that the banks are FDIC insured, because that leads to our financial guarantee requirement. So that's kind of our threshold for it. But this is fairly standard, but I do hear what you guys are saying in terms of numbers and things like that.
And we don't just come up with a number and the city just takes it for granted we're telling the truth or got it accurate. They have a pretty strong breakdown of how much paving, how much curbing, how much, all the things that they require, and it goes to Public Works, and they approve or disapprove. And there's been times where they say, hey, we think you're a little light on this. We get to a base number, then they times whatever agreed upon number we have for that particular project by 1.5 times, or 150%, as Charles just said. And that letter of credit, that formal document, which is literally as good as a bag of cash, goes to the city, and the city can call upon that letter of credit at any time they feel necessary if something was to happen to me, or we didn't finish the project, or whatever happens. Not that they ever want to do that, or I want that to happen, but that letter of credit can be called upon by the city from the bank.
Thank you. Any other thoughts or questions from board members? Chris?
I completely understand the desire to have a set number of like, hey, we're thinking, even if it was a range, 3 million, 5 million, something, just so that we could sink our teeth in it better. As someone who, not to this scale, but works in construction, you're talking about a project that's going to take multiple years to finish. You don't know what the tenants are going to be. I could see like, oh, the rough outside, the buildings, basic utilities, you get a cost for that. But I mean, if some of these people are doing custom specs for their different layouts, building material costs go through the roof based on things out of your control, it could be very difficult to get a very precise, this is the price of the project. We're going to have to come up with a letter of credit, equity, all these things. If it meets our legal standpoint from the city's perspective, I don't see why we need to drag it out into a more detailed document. But that's my own personal view, I guess.
And Charles said it best. Nothing happened. We don't even set up a pre-construction meeting until that signed letter of credit. I mean, never mind doing any physical work. And it's not like we're hidden out there. It's not like we can do work and nobody sees us. I mean, we're under a microscope out there. So nothing happens until that pre-construction meeting, and that doesn't happen until we have a signed, authorized letter of credit from the bank.
Thank you, Chris. Any other thoughts from board members? The financial capacity doesn't bother me. We have the letter, and like Charles says, we have this conversation quite a bit. Financial guarantee, 150%. That's the next step to get the project going. So a letter from any bank with any value can be completely different once we get to a real financial guarantee, and that's the key component to that. So like Charles said, it satisfies the requirement. I'm satisfied. That's just me. Any other thoughts from board members, questions, concerns? Jim?
I just agree with Chris and you, Mr. Chair, on this.
Catherine?
I'll also say I agree. I asked a few weeks ago how old a letter is to be too old, and Charles assured us at that time that they do request an updated one before any meetings after we vote. So I also agree that it will come, like hard numbers will come later, or as hard as can be guessed at the time. Thank you.
Any other thoughts from board members?
Mr. Chair, I'm ready to move that we approve the proposed findings of fact.
I'll second that.
All right, thank you for the motion, Joyce, and the second, Chris. Any additional discussion on the motion to adopt the findings of fact as presented? All right, those in favor, Chris?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
I'll vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0.
Mr. Chair, I'll move that we adopt the conditions of approval.
I'll second that.
Thank you for the motion, Jim, and the second, Chris. Any additional discussion on adopting the conditions of approval as presented? All right, those in favor, Chris?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
I'll vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the site plan application for Park North Development, map 63, lot 6.
Thank you for the motion, Joyce.
I'll second that.
Second by Chris, thank you. Any additional discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Jim?
do we, did we already deal with the waiver for the off-street parking?
So I will refer to the memo, but I can provide a quick update. In that memo, staff were recommending not approving the waiver as the condition number 8 discusses the requirement for joint parking agreement and any necessary cross easement, at least for phase 1 and possibly future phases, especially as more parking comes online. Staff find that this agreement kind of provides meets the parking requirement for the site. So waiving it might, create more issues in the future, limit the site. But we figured that if the site is meeting with the shared parking agreement with the appropriate documents, then the minimum parking requirement is met. So there is no waiver needed. And I believe the applicant team were, agreeable to that.
Yes, and actually, I think it was you, Matt, that brought up that under the ordinance, as long as you have future parking that's available, and with shared parking, shared uses, that a waiver isn't even needed.
Well, that addresses my concern, thank you.
Great, thank you, Jim. Any other thoughts or questions, discussion items? All right, so we agree then we can continue with the motion, okay. All right, those in favor, Chris?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Joyce?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
I'll vote yes as well. Motion passes 6-0. Great. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, continuing along with our agenda this evening, item 10, general correspondences. Any general correspondences this evening?
There were none for the planning board this evening.
All right, thank you. Agenda item 11, planning department updates or discussion items.
And none at this time. I will make a reminder that you do have a site walk tomorrow morning. I say you, I have PDRC at 8:30. So we will have Lauren from the planning department there and possibly Madison as well. Other things to note, that the next planning board meeting for whatever the August 4th meeting, we have already canceled that, as that is National Night Out. So we look forward to seeing you there. We will be, the planning department and the Conservation Commission will be tabling, and we will be hopefully doing some, initial mapping outreach for the open space plan. So we're excited to start moving that forward. So the next planning board meeting is August 11th. If you could all attend, that would be wonderful. That is a training for the night, so there will be no memos to review. Take a couple weeks off from reviewing the memos. And then August 18th, we will have a exciting agenda. So looking forward to seeing you there. I will not be there on the 11th, as I do not need planning board training. It's not required for me.
Great, thank you, Charles. Item 12 on our agenda this evening, planning board comments. Any, Chris?
For the 11th standard meeting time,
Yeah, 6 o'clock.
and it will go to 9, 10.
No,
Okay. That was my
it
thought.
really shouldn't.
Okay, that was kind of my thought, but.
But it will be a pretty thorough training. We're definitely going to get an attorney here to give the new state law, new mandatory training. To be frank, I don't know what that fully entails. I don't think anyone really does. But a planning board training that's consistent with new state law. And we're going to look to see if we can find some other supplemental information similar to when we provided you the SLOTA training in February. So if there's anything you guys are interested in, would want to learn more about, let me know.
Great, thank you. Any other planning board comments, Jeff?
Yeah, I think it would be great if we wanted to fill in a little bit. Several years ago, we had city engineer Joe Laveria come and speak on some of the impaired streams and the challenges that the city has to face to meet some of their criteria to keeping those streams clear, the runoff, and then the different types of culverts with the live bottoms. If we happen to have time and if something like Public Works were interested, I found that very helpful last time in our review and what the goals are, especially if we get a feedback from the Conservation Commission about wildlife passage or trails. Knowing what type of structure that the applicants are putting in is very helpful for us, kind of the behind the scenes why they're asking for it. So, thank you.
Yeah, great, thank you. I believe, Charles, was I speaking with you or Emily? I think she reached out to fire department
Yeah.
and a few folks and invited them to that meeting as well.
Yeah, we're checking availability of folks, and then we'll, kind of from there. But Jeff, I hear you, and we'll try to see what we can do. I find stream crossings fascinating, so.
Great, thank you. Any other thoughts? Chris?
I guess similar to Jeff's point, maybe something from code enforcement, because I feel like they take off from where we leave off type of deal. So maybe just, even if it's just a quick rundown of like what their process is from like, they get an application from us,
Yeah.
what they look at, just stuff like that.
I think a good response to that is we're currently working on a development review SOP that is, A to Z, pretty much A to Z. And then what we're going to do after that is the post-approval process. So we can have those two documents kind of be very informational for everybody in Saco, applicants, volunteers, council members, anyone, trying to understand that. So I'll reach out to code, see what they can provide. Or we can have, our compliance assistant planner, Lauren, kind of provide some insight on that. But we're looking at that process, trying to see, what's the best way, working with code. I think with Emily stepping into the deputy city admin for community development, there's a lot more collaboration between the departments under that. So code, planning, assessing, and economic development. Sorry, Tracy. But we're looking at kind of how we can make this whole process a little bit more efficient. So I think we can loop you in on that.
Great, thank you. Any other thoughts? All right, well, thank you everyone for joining us this evening, and we will adjourn at 8:23 p.m. Thank you, everyone.